What is up, my dudes? This is Seth with the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. Welcome back to Week 6 Underdog Fantasy lineups brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, where we like to play fantasy sports. I know there's some wording we should be using now with some official rules, so we are going to abide by that. This is Underdog Fantasy lineups, Week 6. Jordan, how's it going, man?
Good. Coming off recording Thursday night, Jordan Mason injury just absolutely buried me. And then he came back in the second half for one play, so didn't get the voids. And on top of that, he
Yeah.
had 9 yards on the one play. It's just like the guy was gonna smash. Had the alt lines up to 100 plus. Like, just had him captained in a showdown lineup. Just so much stuff. I had Jordan Mason. I thought it was such a good spot for him, and it was 9 carries, 76 yards. I think the backup running back had 100 yards. Just
Yeah,
so
it was a real bummer.
yeah. But yeah, I'm ready. We need to break this streak, Seth. Of obviously we don't want the streak in the other direction, but we've been I feel like, good week, one bad week, one good week, one bad week. So, we had a really good week 4.
Mm-hmm.
Just we got buried last week. There's no way to two ways to put it. Week
No,
5.
there's not. And it's not even close.
And
It was
then so
buried. Yeah.
hopefully we go in the right direction. We don't want to go bad again. So hopefully we have a good week this week.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the problem is. Before we get into our plays this week, I just want to bring you guys something brought to you by Underdog. This is a new thing they started doing this year. It's called the Vulture Protection Designated RB List. So it's basically just if a starting running back such as Derrick Henry is on the goal line and they're on the 1 yard line, you're like, okay, Derrick Henry's getting this touchdown. Okay, you have him over half touchdown anytime. Lamar Jackson runs it in, or Justice Hill runs it in. Well, you heard it here, guys. He is completely safe from that. It'll just get voided, and I think you get a free square out of it, or maybe it's just voided. I'm not really sure. But all these running backs listed on here are part of that protection RB list, the vulture protection. So if you guys feel pretty happy about playing these guys, they're safe from any quarterback or any non-player on this list getting a rushing touchdown, that they are safe from these vultures. So, anyways, let's get into our first play this week.
Real
Jordan,
quick,
you're
Seth,
up.
before we
Oh,
get
go ahead.
into it, make sure give us a like, guys. Really appreciate that. Hit the subscribe button for us. You'll get notified when we have videos come up on YouTube. Just really hit that like button. Really appreciate that if you can hit that like button. Right now, you're listening. It's real easy. Hit the like button for us right now.
All right, Jordan, you got your first play this week.
Yeah, so I got Joe Burrow. I got a quarterback play this week. Kind of different, and the multiplier isn't great here. It's only 0.83. But I think this is a really good spot for Joe Burrow. I know Seth has a play that's kind of correlated with this a little bit later on. But I like the Joe Burrow over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think this is the Sunday night game. Yeah, Sunday night game. This Giants defense really isn't good. Like, I don't really know how else to put it. And this Bengals passing offense is really, really good. So really like the spot here for Joe Burrow to get over that 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdowns last week. It's a great line to add on to any one of your plays. Let's get into the second pick we have. I have Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas kind of has emerged. Well, we've seen him be the big play guy on Jacksonville, and Kirk was kind of off those first few weeks. He kind of came back into it as like the possession receiver, but now Brian Thomas is seeing a lot more targets. I think the Jaguars just have to throw the ball a little bit more because they're going to be playing from behind. This is the London game against Caleb Williams. It's a Jacksonville. Technically, they're away, but it's a home game for them because they're in London. So I expect Brian Thomas to have a pretty big game. I think he easily gets over this number by 15, 20 yards. We've seen plenty times that Brian Thomas catches, this line total in one catch.
Yeah, I like that one, Seth. I do worry a little bit that Bears defense is pretty good, but I also think Brian Thomas can get there on volume alone. And I think this game will have a little bit of tempo to it. And I think there's some scoring in this game just because what we've seen is Jaguars games, they tend to just drag their team along a little bit because this defense is so bad that it forces them to have to play from behind and catch up a lot, which forces them to throw the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. We got another wide receiver here as Jordan, your second play.
So I got Jalen Tolbert playing Detroit this week. Jalen Tolbert, for one, if you listen to our starts and sits pod that we just did, that came out on Thursday, he was one of my starts of the week. For a lot of different reasons. I mean, this Detroit offense or Detroit defense, excuse me, is a lot more attackable through the air. They're really, really good against the run. They're more of a pass funnel. Tolbert had like his most receiving yards, most targets, most snaps played without Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks on IR. I think this line is way too low. I think he had like 7 catches for 80 in the 89 yards, 87 yards, somewhere in there. Last week, he gets just as good of a matchup this week against that Detroit secondary. So, and Dak has shown that he wants to throw to him, especially if they're going to try to take away CD. Just like Tolbert a lot in this spot. I think this line it's just too low. I think I would play this anywhere up until maybe like that 47, 48 and a half, 49 and a half at the most. Don't know if I'd play it up in the 50s, but I think at the high 40s, it's still playable.
Detroit wants to take away. They're going to take away the run game. I think we already know that. If they want to take away the big play guy, CD Lamb, like they're going to dedicate players, maybe 2 of them, to him all the time. They're going to find ways to get ball to Tolbert. And like you were saying here, 44 and a half seems too low for him. I'll get into my second play. This week, I have actually a running back also in the London game. DeAndre Swift has hit an over in this receiving yard. I know for at least his last 2 games, and I think this is honestly a smash spot for him. We've seen he has pass catching ability with the Eagles last year. Even though I don't think they used him quite to his potential. I think the Bears are figuring out ways to use him. Why he might not be the strongest in the run game. I think there would be plenty of opportunities for him to get 16 and a half receiving yards, and it just seems too low to me. Like it's 1 or 2 catches for these guys, and it just seems too easy.
For what it's worth, Seth, the Jaguars give up the second most receiving yards to running backs through 5 games this year. I also have, I think my third play is also in this game, the London game. So I know we have a lot in that game, but like I said, these Jaguars games are really attackable because of how bad this pass defense is. And so this Rome Odunze line, over 38 and a half right now currently. Look, like I don't even care. I know that Rome's kind of been really up and down. I understand that, but for me, this is just I want to attack that Jaguar secondary. So he's been kind of back and forth. So week 3, 6 for 112. Week 4, 1 for 10. Week 5, 5 for 40. So I know he's up and down, but this is just such a good spot. The Jaguars were burned by Alec Pierce twice last week. Who's the guy who's going to take it over the top for this Bears team? It's not going to be Keenan Allen. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to be Cole Kmet. It's going to be one of DJ Moore or Rome Odunze. And DJ Moore's line is in the low 60s. Rome's is at 38 and a half. So I just really, again, always want to attack this Jaguars secondary until they show me that they can cover any type of passing. So I just really like the spot here. I like this. I think it's just way too low. I really think his line should be in the 40s, mid 40s. So I think I'd play this all the way up until about 41 and a half, 42 and a half. I think above that, I get a little worried about it. But you get this thing below 40. I really, really like it.
I just went back and looked to make sure what I was saying about Swift was right. He has gone over that 16 and a half mark 4 out of 5 games. He did not receive a single catch in the first game. And ever since that, he's had 4+ targets and 2+ catches for 20+ yards. So I think that line seems just ridiculously low, even especially against, like what you were saying, a Jaguars team that gives up the second most receiving yards to running backs. You can see that we did like that London game. I'll get into my last pick, and then we'll talk about some other lines we like. So for my last pick, kind of going to the well here. I believe either me or you've had Jamar Chase once or twice this year, but I'm going to Jamar Chase at 72 and a half. Jamar had an insane week last week. I think it was close to 200 yards, the Bengals are going to keep throwing the ball. It's their strength. It's pass first, run second, and I think Jamar Chase is going to benefit from that. 72.5 is a high line, but I think he finishes in the 90s this week. So that gives me, like 19 yards or 17 yards to work with here, potentially even more, making this just a smash spot. The Giants, not a very good team, and I think Jamar Chase is just a talented player. So this is just really sticking with a guy who can get it done and a line that just seems a little too low than I think what it should be.
I think, Seth, if you look at like by the numbers, the Giants are fairly good. Like they don't allow a ton of receiving yards. But if you look at who they've played, I think that tells the bigger story. Like, okay, they played a Vikings team with Sam Darnold in his first game. Like Justin Jefferson, like fully wasn't dialed in, I don't think, that game. But I mean, he gave up like 459. So I mean, it wasn't the best. But then like, okay, they played the Commanders. Jaden Daniels' second game, they moved the ball, but they only had 6 field goals. Like there wasn't, again, okay, so nothing great there. The Browns, Deshaun Watson, doesn't matter. Then they
Yes.
play Dak Prescott. Like I don't think Dak Prescott's that good. Like then they wouldn't play Geno. Like that's probably their most impressive, but also like in that game, they gave up, 4 for 75 to Lockett, 7 for 57, 455 to Metcalf. So like again, there's not huge numbers, but also like they haven't played an offense as capable as Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati offense. That is literally clicking on all cylinders right now.
Yeah, and I'll say ever since like Jamar Chase's, I guess his week 2 was his weakest performance, is 4 for 35. He's had 7+ targets and 3+ catches and 85+ yards, and he's had a 5 touchdown span in those last 3 weeks. So I mean, like that kind of gets me into like our like some other lines we like. Jamar Chase anytime touchdown, like
Yeah.
he has he has 5 touchdowns in the last 3 games, totaling close to 400 yards in the last 3 games. So, I mean, it just seems like I'm just riding the hot hand here, and it might be like I said, we were saying like the Giants might actually be pretty decent against it. Um, I'll say that Joe Burrow is better than Geno Smith, and I think Jamar Chase is more talented than Seahawks receivers. And T.
I
Higgins,
all
I think, is right there too.
To be honest, I think a lot of these stud receiver, the lines that they set are just too low.
Yeah.
Like I'd be curious if you hit the lines on like every stud receiver in solid to good matchups every week, what you would hit, like now I'm not
Yeah.
saying you want to play the Tyreek Hill line with
No.
who knows back there quarterback, but like in general, like if you were just to play the Justin Jefferson, the CeeDee Lambs, the Jamar Chase's lines every week, obviously they might get to a point where they're too high. I get that. But also like in good matchups, I think in decent matchups, these guys are just really good and they get the ball.
Well, I recall when we were first doing this pod, and it was just when we were talking about, doing this underdog fantasy lineup pod. It was like, Justin Jefferson's lines were like 90, 91, 92, and Jamar Chase's were up there too. And I don't know if, like shout out to Underdog for being great, but it just seems like these lines are just too low. They might not like might require some like manual input here. So,
Yeah.
but you're saying too, like I think that might be a good idea. Like if Jamar or Justin Jefferson's not playing this week, but if you want to take like a CeeDee Lamb line and match it with a Jamar Chase and throw in another one, like I kind of like Terry McLaurin this week too. Like,
Yep.
that's like that that might be a nice 3 pick right there. Throw a half a
Well,
unit on that. I don't know. I
I,
mean,
I like
go ahead.
I like the Terry McLaurin set in a pass funnel against Baltimore. I like Zay
Yeah.
Flowers on the other side in that game on his yards. Man, another guy I would love, but we had last week. I think you go right back to Jaden Reed, man. The over 16.5 receiving
Yes.
yards.
Mhm.
And against this Arizona pass defense. I think Stephon Diggs over 63.5 against New England, like without Nico Collins, like the line just seems a little low. Not the best matchup in the world, but and then another one I like is Jameson Williams. I've gone Jameson so much just because he has the ability to get in one play like we've talked about, but also his volume is way bigger. And outside of one game, he's been pretty consistent this year, over 46.5 against this Dallas secondary who likes to gamble. And if Micah Parsons isn't out there, the defense really isn't that good. I like a lot of receivers this week. I think the Bijan line is just super tempting to take, like the over 67.5 rush yards against this Panthers secondary. Really, really intrigues me. I'm definitely going to have a piece of that this week as well.
Yeah, that one makes me nervous. I'm curious to see what man, why am I blanking on the backup's name? Algier. If his line's in the 20s, like that is a
it's
smash.
not. I look, Seth. It's at 37.
It's in the 30s. Yeah, see, that seems high to me, but that just
37 and
shows
a
you
half.
like that's what makes me nervous about Bijan's 67 line is like, shoot, like Algier might get 50.
Yeah.
And Bijan gets 45. I don't know. Like that's what's scary about that line there. I mean, I think I did that last week when Algier was like at like 25 and it was an awesome pick. But definitely that's a good one. You got any more you like?
No, I honestly, I think that's it. Like, if you want to add one more to that, like London game, like I think we basically have a single game parlay, SGP for that now. But like Caleb Williams over 234.5 passing yards. Like, I think, Underdog will let you like correlate those a little bit. So like you go the Caleb pass over the pass yards, you go the Roma Dunze over receiving yards, Swift over receiving yards, and then bring it back with like the Brian Thomas over receiving yards. There's a little four-man single game parlay you could play, which I might just do that one. So we'll see.
Yeah, I am definitely going to do that one because unlike a lot of so-called NFL fans who don't wake up to watch this game, I wake up usually around that time every day. And so why not wake up on Sunday and sit down, drink some coffee and watch that game? So, because I miss half the morning games anyways. Yep. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, for week 6.
Underdog we need to do our official play, Seth.
Oh, yes.
Our official play.
Can't miss that.
So our official play this week, we're going to go with the Jamar Chase over. So the over on Jamar Chase, I just got at 76.5 receiving yards. The over on the Jalen Tolbert receiving yards, over 44.5 receiving yards. And then the Roma Dunze over 38.5 receiving yards in that London game. Hopefully we can get the morning off, Sunday morning started off right. We got that morning game. We got a normal time slot game. And then we got the Sunday night game. So we're spread out all over the board on Sunday. A nice little sweat throughout the day.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, guys, for week 6 Underdog Fantasy lineups. Check out our week 6 preview show that was released this morning, which we recorded on Wednesday night. If you guys want to check that out, we have starts, sits, and sleepers. And then Trent also will be coming to us next Monday on a waiver wire show. So check those shows out. Give a like, thumbs up, some comments, share with your friends, guys. Thanks for joining us at this week 6 Underdog Fantasy lineups. Have a good weekend, guys. Good luck.
This has been another episode of the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow. For more information, go to www.thefantasyfootballdudes.com. And remember, we are sorry for absolutely nothing.